The FBI learned how to catch killers by befriending them. Critics called it immoral. Psychologists called it dangerous. Victims' families called it disgusting. But it worked. And the psychological cost on the agents who pioneered this method? That's the real story nobody talks about. I'm about to share how all that came into being through one of my best TV shows, Mindhunter. I've watched every serial killer show Netflix has produced, and most of them feel like cheap thrills. Mindhunter hit differently. This show made me uncomfortable in ways I didn't expect, not because of gore or jump scares, but because it forced me to listen to real killers explain their thought processes. David Fincher served as the series' most frequent director and de facto showrunner, and you can feel his perfectionist touch in every frame. The performances blew me away. Jonathan Groff transforms from naive FBI agent to someone who's stared too long into the abyss. Watch his face change between season 1 and season 2. That's not makeup, that's an actor channeling psychological trauma. Holt McCallany brings this blue-collar authenticity to Bill Tench that makes you forget you're watching someone act. Anna Torv makes Dr. Wendy Carr feel like the smartest person in every room while battling her own demons. The series is based on the 1995 true crime book, Mindhunter, inside the FBI's elite serial crime unit by Johnny Douglas and Mark Olshaker. Douglas is the real agent who inspired Holden Ford's character. The man actually sat across from Ed Kemper, Charles Manson, and dozens of other killers. He pioneered criminal profiling by doing exactly what the show depicts, having conversations with murderers. Fincher's direction creates this suffocating atmosphere. Every interview scene feels like a chess match where the stakes are life and death. The cinematography traps you in those prison visiting rooms. You feel claustrophobic watching two men talk across a table, which should be impossible. It makes dialogue feel as tense as action sequences. Fincher later explained that a mix of high budgets and low viewership made Mindhunter a lot for him, citing that he spent 6 to 7 months on each season. This level of detail shows. Every prop, every costume, every set piece screams 1970s authenticity. The cultural impact can't be overstated. Before Mindhunter, criminal profiling was Hollywood fantasy. This show demonstrated how behavioral analysis actually works. It's methodical, psychological, and deeply disturbing. The series influenced how we think about serial killers, not as monsters, but as people with specific psychological patterns that can be studied and understood. The brilliance of this show is that it focuses on the psychological cost of this work. These agents aren't superheroes. They're regular people who chose to swim in humanity's darkest waters. The show explores how that choice changes them. Ford becomes obsessed, detached, arrogant. Tench's marriage crumbles. Carr struggles with her sexuality and professional reputation. The work damages everyone it touches. The industry recognized this quality. The first season of 10 episodes debuted worldwide on Netflix on October 13th, 2017, and critics immediately called it a masterpiece. The second season of Mindhunter premiered on August 16th, 2019, with the release of 9 episodes. Unfortunately, budget constraints and viewership numbers led to cancellation, though the Netflix show could return for 3 two-hour movies. The show's examination of the Atlanta child murders deserves special mention. This wasn't just another serial killer case, it was a racial powder keg that nearly tore a city apart. The series handled this subject matter with incredible sensitivity while maintaining historical accuracy. Let me walk you through the entire 2 seasons of Mindhunter. Season 1. The story begins in 1977, Virginia. FBI agent Holden Ford teaches hostage negotiation at the FBI Academy. He's young, idealistic, and completely unprepared for what's coming. During a hostage situation involving a school shooter, Ford tries his textbook approach. The situation goes wrong and the hostage taker kills himself. Ford realizes traditional FBI methods don't work with abnormal psychology. Ford partners with veteran agent Bill Tench, who's been with the Bureau for decades. Tench is skeptical of Ford's theories but agrees to travel around the country teaching local law enforcement. Their official job is conducting educational seminars. Their real mission becomes something entirely different. While traveling, Ford suggests they interview imprisoned serial killers to understand their psychology. Tench thinks this is insane, but Ford convinces him to visit Edmund Kemper at the California medical facility. Kemper killed 10 people, including his mother, whom he decapitated and sexually assaulted. The first Kemper interview changes everything. He's articulate, friendly, and terrifyingly intelligent. Kemper explains his crimes in detail, describing how he picked up hitchhiking college students, killed them, and brought their bodies home. He tells Ford about his relationship with his abusive mother and how her death was his ultimate goal. Ford becomes obsessed with these interviews. He starts visiting Kemper regularly, and their conversations become increasingly personal. Kemper begins treating Ford like a friend, sharing intimate details about his childhood and crimes. Ford believes he's gathering valuable data. He doesn't realize Kemper is manipulating him. Back at FBI headquarters, Ford pitches his research to Unit Chief Robert Shepard. Shepard is horrified by Ford's methods but can't argue with the results. Ford's psychological insights help solve several cases, including a sequence killer in Georgia who's been murdering young boys. Ford recruits Dr. Wendy Carr, a psychology professor, to join their team. Carr is fascinated by Ford's research and provides academic credibility to their work. She's also a closeted lesbian in the 1970s, which adds personal stakes to her professional choices. The team interviews multiple killers, including Richard Speck, who murdered 8 student nurses in Chicago. Each interview reveals different psychological patterns. Some killers are organized, others disorganized. Some have specific victim types, others kill randomly. Ford begins developing what will become criminal profiling. Ford's obsession with killers affects his relationship with graduate student Debbie Mitford. She's studying sociology and initially supports Ford's work. But as Ford becomes more detached and clinical, their relationship deteriorates. Ford starts speaking like the killers he interviews, using their language and adopting their perspectives. The season's climax involves a case in Sacramento where local police are hunting a child killer. Ford's profile leads them to suspect Daryl Jean Devier, but the evidence is circumstantial. He pushes the investigation forward based purely on psychological analysis. During Devier's interrogation, Ford uses techniques learned from Kemper. He manipulates Devier psychologically, getting him to confess to the murders. But Ford pushes too hard, and Devier has a mental breakdown. The confession becomes legally questionable, and Ford realizes his methods have serious ethical problems. The season ends with Ford visiting Kemper one final time. Kemper has been following Ford's cases through newspaper articles. He congratulates Ford on his success, but warns him about the psychological cost of this work. Ford dismisses the warning, believing he's immune to the effects of studying killers. Season 2. Season 2 takes us to 1980 Atlanta. Black children are disappearing and turning up dead. The community is terrified and racial tensions are exploding. Local police are overwhelmed and request FBI assistance. Ford, Tench, and Carr arrive to provide support. The Atlanta investigation is politically charged. The black community suspects the Ku Klux Klan is targeting their children. White officials worry about racial violence. The FBI must navigate these tensions while hunting a killer who's claimed over 20 victims. Ford's team establishes a profile of the killer. They believe he's a young black man who's gaining the children's trust before killing them. This profile is controversial because it contradicts community expectations. Most people assume the killer is white, possibly a Klan member. While working in Atlanta, Tench faces a personal crisis. His wife Nancy discovers their young son Brian has been involved in disturbing behavior with neighborhood children. Brian participated in a sexual assault against a younger child. Nancy is devastated and their marriage begins crumbling. Tench struggles to balance his professional work with his family crisis. He's an expert in childhood development and criminal psychology, but he can't help his own son. The irony is crushing. Tench begins questioning whether studying killers has somehow infected his family. Ford continues interviewing imprisoned killers, adding Charles Manson to his list. Manson is manipulative and charismatic, trying to recruit Ford to his twisted worldview. Ford believes he's maintaining professional distance, but Manson's influence is subtle and dangerous. The team also interviews Wayne Williams, a young black man who becomes the prime suspect in the Atlanta murders. Williams is arrogant and defensive, claiming he's being framed because of his race. Ford conducts multiple interviews with Williams, trying to break through his defenses. Dr. Carr faces her own challenges. She's attracted to a bartender named Kay, and they begin a relationship. But Carr is closeted and terrified of professional consequences. She's also dealing with media attention from the Atlanta case, which threatens to expose her personal life. The Atlanta investigation becomes increasingly complex. Physical evidence links Williams to several murders through fiber analysis. Ford's psychological profile supports Williams as the killer. Yet the case is built on circumstantial evidence and controversial profiling techniques. Ford's behavior becomes more erratic. He's obsessed with being right about Williams and dismisses contradictory evidence. His arrogance alienates local police and creates tension with Tench and Carr. Ford believes his psychological insights are infallible. The investigation reaches a breaking point when Ford pushes too hard during a Williams interview. He becomes confrontational and loses professional composure. Williams' lawyer ends the interview, and Ford Ford realizes he's compromised the case. Tench's family situation deteriorates further. Nancy leaves him and takes Brian to her parents' house. Tench is devastated and begins drinking heavily. His personal crisis affects his work performance, and he considers leaving the FBI. The season builds to a climactic confrontation between Ford and Williams. Ford is convinced Williams is the killer, but can't prove it definitively. Williams maintains his innocence and accuses Ford of racial bias. The truth becomes murky, and Ford's certainty wavers. The Atlanta case concludes with Williams being convicted of 2 adult murders. Many child murders remain officially unsolved, though police believe Williams is responsible. Ford claims victory, but the case leaves everyone emotionally damaged. Carr's relationship with Kay becomes serious, but she's still struggling with her sexual identity. The stress of the Atlanta case and her personal life creates mounting pressure. She begins questioning whether she wants to continue this work. The season's final episodes introduce Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, who will become season 3's focus. Rader is shown in Kansas beginning his murder spree. His calm, methodical approach contrasts with the chaos in Atlanta. Ford's psychological state continues declining. He's become arrogant and detached, believing he understands killers better than anyone. His relationships with Tench and Carr are strained, and his romantic relationship with Debbie has ended. The season culminates with Ford having a complete breakdown. During a routine interview, he becomes overwhelmed by the psychological weight of his work. He rushes to California to see Kemper, seeking comfort from the killer who's become his closest confidant. Kemper gives Ford a hug, and Ford has a massive panic attack. He realizes he's been psychologically manipulated by every killer he's interviewed. The work has changed him fundamentally, and he can't return to who he was before. The series ends with Ford's breakdown, Tench's family destroyed, and Carr questioning her career choices. The FBI's behavioral science unit has been established, but the personal cost has been enormous. The pioneers of criminal profiling have been damaged by their own success. Meanwhile, BTK continues killing in Kansas, setting up future investigations. The work continues, but the original team has been fundamentally changed by their experiences. The story concludes with the FBI's behavioral science unit officially established, but its founders psychologically shattered. Ford suffers a complete mental breakdown. Tench's family is destroyed, and Carr questions everything she's worked for. Williams is convicted and the Atlanta case is closed, though questions remain about his guilt. The series demonstrates how studying evil changes the people who do it. These agents pioneered techniques that would save countless lives, but the personal cost was enormous. Criminal profiling became a standard FBI tool, but its creators paid with their sanity and relationships. What did you think about Ford's transformation from idealistic agent to someone who could barely function? Do you believe Williams was actually guilty of all those murders in Atlanta? Hit that subscribe button if you want more recaps into the psychology of crime shows. Let me know in the comments which true crime series you'd like me to cover next.